You murdered and you snatched Angel's dad away from her.
Don't have mercy on your soul, as you didn't have mercy on his.
And then you marry her. That was my words to my son. I don't think I said wrong to him. I think I told him the right thing.
In a world where family should be a sanctuary, some turn it into a battleground of lies, betrayal, and tragedy. These cases reveal chilling acts of violence within families that leave communities stunned and loved ones shattered. From Tiniko Thompson's deceitful motives to Bree Kuhn's heartless actions, these are the stories of family killers who showed no remorse. Let's begin.
Just a little before she did what she done to my son. I can't believe this, really. I can't believe this.
Tiniko Thompson, a former Atlanta police officer, was convicted of murdering her boyfriend. She showed no remorse, claiming self-defense, but evidence contradicted her story. In May 2014, Fort Lauderdale witnessed a tragic crime that shook the community. Miami police officer Carl Patrick, known for his dedication and compassion, was found dead in his Pembroke Pines home. His live-in girlfriend, Tiniko Thompson, claimed self-defense, but her actions and inconsistencies painted a different picture. Carl Patrick was a dedicated Miami police officer who spent his life serving others. In May 2014, his life was tragically cut short when he was found dead in his Pembroke Pines home, still wearing his uniform. The person responsible was his live-in girlfriend, Tiniko Thompson, who claimed she shot Carl in self-defense because he had been offensive. However, prosecutors uncovered troubling facts that cast doubt on her story. After the shooting, Thompson took Carl's phone, preventing him from calling for help. Instead of seeking assistance, she fabricated a pregnancy and even used his credit cards after his death. These actions painted a picture of deceit rather than desperation. Carl's mother, Lucille Patrick, was heartbroken by the loss of her son. She stood firm against Thompson's claim of mistreatment, describing Carl as a kind-hearted man who loved Tiniko deeply. "My son was good to that lady and loved her so much he couldn't see the ugly in her," Lucille said, her grief palpable.
My son was good to that lady, and he loved her so much that he could not see the ugly in her.
The trial was filled with conflicting stories, leaving the courtroom divided. Tiniko Thompson's family begged for mercy, describing her as a compassionate person and claiming she was a victim of mistreatment. They pleaded with the court to consider her difficult past and alleged struggles. However, the prosecutors presented a very different picture. They argued there was no proof of the mistreatment Thompson had described. Instead, they focused on her actions after the shooting, which appeared calculated and heartless, leaving Carl Patrick to die. Later, she misused his credit cards and faked a pregnancy, showing a lack of remorse and responsibility for her actions. When it was time for sentencing, Thompson addressed Carl's grieving mother. Fighting back tears, she said, "I didn't mean for him to die. I did it to defend myself." But her words didn't bring comfort or change the outcome. The family saw her apology as too little, too late. The court ultimately sided with the evidence, finding Thompson guilty. For Carl's loved ones, her actions spoke louder than words, leaving them with heartbreak and a sense of betrayal they would carry forever. In August 2016, Tiniko Thompson was found guilty of second-degree murder. On November 4th, 2016, she was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole, but she didn't show any remorse. Judge Jeffrey Cohen delivered the sentence, bringing a sense of justice to Patrick's loved ones. The courtroom was filled with mixed emotions, sorrow, relief, and anger. Patrick's family and friends hugged, finding some solace in the verdict. Lucille Patrick expressed gratitude, saying he couldn't kill that woman, but she did it. Despite the pain, she found comfort in knowing that her son's killer would be held accountable. The case serves as a grim reminder of how deception and tragedy can intertwine, leaving behind broken hearts and unanswered questions. Breaking news: Evil Lives Here now has merch. Support the channel and grab your gear today. Check the link in the description. Tiniko Thompson's actions left a family heartbroken in disbelief. But the next case shows a story of a rising star's life murder.
To sterilize Sierra Harp to prevent any more children being born. We also ask for the highest punishment of life without parole.
Raheem Grant, an Atlanta rapper known as Red Beezy, was a rising star. He started his music career as a child and even performed at Showtime at the Apollo when he was just 7 years old. By his 20s, he was not only a rapper but also a skilled producer and recording engineer. Despite his success, Raheem's life took a tragic turn on December 29, 2017, due to a volatile relationship with the mother of his child, Sierra Harp. In 2013, Sierra Harp approached Raheem Grant for an autograph and a job. Raheem, kind and driven, hired her to promote his shows. Their professional relationship soon turned romantic, and in 2014 they welcomed a beautiful daughter, Angel. Raheem was a devoted father who always put his daughter first, but his relationship with Sierra became increasingly difficult. By late 2017, Raheem was preparing for an exciting music tour, working hard to grow his career. During this time, Sierra, who had nowhere else to stay, moved in with him temporarily. However, her behavior became unpredictable. She often had fits of jealousy, leading to heated arguments. Concerned for his safety, Raheem's mother, Geraldine, advised him to record their interactions just in case. On December 29, 2017, tragedy struck. Sierra appeared at a neighbor's house with stab wounds, holding little Angel in her arms. When the police arrived at Raheem's home, they discovered he had been shot multiple times and stabbed. Sierra claimed it was self-defense, but the evidence suggested otherwise. This heartbreaking event ended Raheem's life, leaving his loved ones to mourn a talented artist and a caring father. At first, investigators believed Raheem had attacked Sierra Harp, forcing her to defend herself. However, Raheem's mother, Geraldine, firmly denied this, explaining that her son was never a violent person. As suspicions deepened, the autopsy results revealed shocking details. Raheem had been shot 7 times, including in the back of his head. These injuries made it clear that he had been defenseless during the attack. The case took a major turn when investigators accessed Raheem's phone. What they found was chilling. In one video, Raheem documented his injuries, painfully stating, "This is what Sierra Harp did to me." Other videos, filmed by Sierra herself, showed her angrily yelling at him and trying to stage a scene to make it look like self-defense. One of the most heartbreaking moments was when Raheem, struggling to survive, was shot again. The evidence from Raheem's phone exposed the truth and provided justice for a kind-hearted father whose life was tragically cut short. It also revealed his bravery in ensuring his story was heard. On February 22, 2018, Sierra Harp was arrested and charged with Raheem's murder. During her trial, the videos left no doubt about her actions, which showed no remorse for her act. In May 2019, Sierra was found guilty of malice murder and aggravated assault. She was sentenced to 125 years in prison. Raheem's mother, Geraldine, now raises Angel, ensuring she grows up surrounded by love and away from the pain caused by her mother's actions. This heartbreaking case reminds us of the importance of recognizing toxic and dangerous relationships. Raheem was a talented artist, a devoted father, and someone who deserved a future free from harm. His legacy lives on in his music and the love his mother provides for Angel. Harp's horrifying actions remind us of the dangers lurking in toxic relationships, but the next case shows a high-profile case where love and betrayal claim self-defense collide.
I waited so long to be able to speak to her face-to-face, and I finally got that for myself personally, so I hope prison serves her well.
On September 27, 2020, 33-year-old Ashley Benefield shot and killed her estranged husband, 58-year-old Doug Benefield, at her home in Florida. Their troubled marriage, filled with allegations of mistreatment and legal battles, became the focus of a trial that the media dubbed the Black Swan trial. Ashley, a former ballerina, claimed she acted in self-defense, but many questioned her true intentions. Ashley stood before the court and described a marriage marked by fear and control. She testified that Doug had been hurtful throughout their relationship, often trying to dominate her life. On the night of the tragic incident, she said an argument escalated dangerously. According to Ashley, Doug blocked her from leaving her home, advanced toward her in anger, and struck her in the face. Feeling terrified and trapped, she grabbed a gun and fired in what she claimed was self-defense. Ashley also shared that she had tried to protect herself and their child in the past. She filed for injunctions against Doug in 2018 and 2020, accusing him of mistreatment and seeking to keep him away from their child. However, no criminal charges were ever brought against Doug, and one of the injunctions was still unresolved when the incident occurred. The prosecution, led by Suzanne O'Donnell, argued against Ashley's claims. O'Donnell pointed to the physical evidence, noting that Doug's bullet wound came from the side, suggesting he wasn't facing Ashley when he was shot. The prosecutor accused Ashley of staging the event to gain sole custody of their child and claimed her grief during the trial was an act to mislead the court. The trial of Ashley Benefield was filled with twists and intense moments that captured everyone's attention. During the proceedings, Ashley's defense team raised concerns about potential issues with the jury. They claimed one juror might have withheld information that showed a bias, while another was accused of sharing details about the trial using a cell phone. These allegations created a stir, but the judge carefully reviewed them and decided to dismiss both claims, allowing the trial to continue. As the case unfolded, Ashley's claim of self-defense came under heavy scrutiny. She testified that she feared for her life when her husband, Doug Benefield, allegedly attacked her, but the evidence didn't fully back up her story. Prosecutors argued that the physical evidence, including the direction of the bullet wound, didn't align with her version of events. This raised serious doubts about whether she was truly acting in self-defense or if her actions were premeditated. In the end, the jury made their decision. They did not believe Ashley was completely innocent, but they also didn't find her guilty of second-degree murder. Instead, she was convicted of manslaughter, a lesser but still serious charge. It was a pivotal moment that shaped her future and brought some closure to Doug's grieving family. On December 3, 2024, Ashley Benefield was sentenced to 20 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation. As the sentence was read, Ashley reportedly showed no emotion. Doug Benefield's family, however, felt justice was served.
I'm going to sentence you to 20 years in Florida State Prison. That's to be followed by 10 years of probation.
Doug's daughter, Eva Benefield, gave a heartfelt statement during the hearing. "My dad was the best man I have ever known in my entire family," she said. "I hope prison serves her well." The family expressed relief that Ashley was held accountable, though they also mourned the loss of Doug, a father and friend whose life ended in tragedy.
My dad was the best man that I've ever known in my entire life, and he will continue to hold that in my mind and in our family's mind forever.
Where Ashley Benefield's case involved a complicated mix of claims and counterclaims, it highlights the devastating impact of household conflict when violence becomes the resolution. Ashley Benefield's trial captivated the nation. The next case is even more harrowing, where a tragic loss changes lives forever. On September 8, 2021, the peaceful Gulf Breeze community was shaken by a devastating incident. U.S. Navy Chief Petty Officer reports a heated argument with her husband, Colin Turner, over their 3 children. By the end of that day, Colin Turner, a loving father and Marine veteran, would be dead, and Kuhn would face charges of first-degree premeditated murder. Bree and Colin's relationship had grown increasingly tense over the years, and September 8, 2021 would mark a tragic turning point. That day, the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office received multiple calls. The first 2 calls, one from Bree and the other from Colin, described heated arguments but revealed no clear signs of physical violence. Deputies arrived and left each time, seeing no reason to intervene further. Later that evening at 6:22 p.m., a third and final call came through. Colin, sounding distressed, told dispatchers that he had been locked in the garage by Bree. He described how she had tried to harm him when he attempted to re-enter the house. Then, during the call, a loud bang echoed in the background. "She just shot me," Colin yelled during the call, as stated by police. Colin's voice is filled with pain and fear when he's on the call. What followed was even more horrifying. 3 more gunshots rang out, and then there was only silence.
What was that? He just shot me. She just shot him. I just heard 4 shots.
By the time deputies returned to the scene, it was too late. Colin Turner, a Marine veteran and father, had lost his life in a tragic and irreversible moment. The events of that day left a community shocked and a family forever changed. Bree was arrested and charged with murder, leading to a trial that revealed 2 very different versions of the truth. Her defense team described her as a woman trapped in an offensive marriage. They claimed Colin, a Marine veteran with a traumatic brain injury, had been emotionally and physically harmful towards her. They argued that years of suffering had caused Bree to fear for her life and the safety of her children. Her lawyers cited battered spouse syndrome, explaining that Bree acted out of desperation. However, the prosecutors painted a starkly different picture. They argued that Bree's actions were not out of fear but premeditated and deliberate. They presented compelling evidence where Colin's final moments could be heard. Testimony from Bree's brother, Eric, further raised questions about her defense, casting doubt on her version of events. For 4 days, the jury listened closely as both sides made their cases. Despite interruptions caused by Hurricane Helene, the jury returned with a clear decision. Bree Kuhn was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. The verdict marked the end of a heartbreaking trial that left a family grieving and a community grappling with the tragedy. Circuit Judge James Duncan sentenced Bree to life in prison without the chance of parole. Still, she had no remorse for her act. She didn't think about her 3 children, witnesses to the tragic events, who were placed in protective custody. This story serves as a painful reminder of the devastating consequences of unresolved conflicts and the mistreatment of household chores. While Bree claimed she acted out of fear and desperation, the evidence painted a picture of a tragic choice that cost Colin his life and shattered 2 families. The next case brings us to Isabella Martinez, a teenager whose actions revealed a dark and disturbing side beneath the surface.
I don't need an attorney.
You don't need an attorney?
No.
Well, I beg to disagree with you. You have a right to represent yourself. In our Constitution, you have a right to represent yourself.
On July 6, 2017, a chilling 911 call was made from a home in Loganville, Georgia. When Gwinnett County Police arrived at the scene, they found a tragic sight: 5 lives lost. The victims included her husband, Martin Romero, 33, and their 4 children: Isabella, 10, Dakota, 7, Dylan, 4, and Axel, 2. A 5th child, Diana, 9, had also been stabbed but survived after undergoing emergency surgery. The Romero family had recently moved into a quiet neighborhood in Loganville, Georgia. By all accounts, they seemed like a happy and close-knit family. The children were often seen playing with friends and were described by neighbors as bright and full of potential. However, beneath this peaceful appearance, tragedy was brewing. Isabella Martinez, the mother, reportedly sank into a deep depression after the death of her father, which seemed to change everything. On July 16, 2017, the unimaginable happened. Isabel made a 911 call admitting she had stabbed her husband and children. When police arrived, they found 5 family members dead and another child, Diana, critically injured but alive. The shock didn't end there. During her first court appearance, Isabel behaved in ways that puzzled everyone. She smiled for the cameras, gave a double thumbs up, and even knelt in a prayer-like pose. Her actions baffled the court and viewers alike. The judge sternly told her to stop, but she shook her head and laughed. When asked about legal representation, Isabel refused an attorney, saying her faith and the people would defend her. It was a chilling display in a case that left a community heartbroken and searching for answers.
A Georgia prosecutor will not seek the death penalty for a woman charged with stabbing her husband and 4 children to death. 34-year-old Isabella Martinez pled not guilty to all charges in a Gwinnett County courthouse today.
The police quickly launched a thorough investigation after the devastating discovery in Loganville. They uncovered that Isabella Martinez had brutally stabbed her family in the early hours of the morning. Shockingly, she confessed to the crimes without hesitation. However, what happened in the courtroom left everyone even more baffled. During her sentencing, Isabel's behavior was nothing short of bizarre. She smiled, waved to the cameras, and even gave a double thumbs up.
Smiling the creepiest smile, gave the jury a thumbs up, and started moving as if she was praying.
She swayed in her seat, held her hands together in a prayer gesture, and appeared completely detached from the severity of the situation. Her strange reactions unsettled everyone present, including the judge, who had to warn her to stop performing for the cameras. Many people began to question what could have driven her to commit such a horrific act. Some experts speculated that Isabel might have been struggling with severe mental health issues, perhaps triggered by the recent loss of her father. Others were left wondering how such an unimaginable tragedy could happen in a seemingly normal, happy family.
I just went cold. I couldn't believe that what had happened. I mean, when they said that there had been a tragedy, I thought maybe a car accident or something.
After a thorough trial where she showed bizarre reactions to her act, Isabella Martinez was convicted of 5 counts of murder, aggravated assault, and child cruelty. She received a life sentence with the chance of parole plus 21 years.
To cut out the display for the cameras,
The loss devastated the community, leaving family, friends, and neighbors grappling with an unimaginable tragedy. The surviving child, Diana, faced a long road to recovery, both physically and emotionally. For many, this case serves as a stark reminder of the hidden pain that can lead to unimaginable actions. Breaking news: Evil Lives Here now has merch. Support the channel and grab your gear today. Check the link in the description. Isabel's brutal attack on her family is impossible to forget. The next case shows the tragic loss of a daughter, leaving us questioning a mother's unimaginable actions.
Just be careful and watch out who you're talking to and watch out who's around you and be suspicious of everything.
On a cold November day in 2014, a tragedy unfolded in Nashua, New Hampshire that would leave a lasting impact on the community. Caitlin Marin, a 27-year-old mother, was convicted of killing her 3-year-old daughter, Brielle Gage. The details of the case were so heart-wrenching that they would haunt everyone involved. Brielle Gage was a sweet, innocent little girl whose life ended far too soon. During Thanksgiving week in 2014, she suffered severe injuries that took her life, leaving her family and community devastated. At first, her mother, Caitlin Marin, claimed that Brielle had fallen down the stairs, but the truth was far more heartbreaking. Investigators soon uncovered a different story, revealing that Brielle had been subjected to unimaginable mistreatment. She had been kicked, punched, and even slammed against a wall. The injuries on her small body told a harrowing tale. Over 50 bruises and wounds showed just how much she had endured. Prosecutors explained that Marin's anger had spiraled out of control. They said she became enraged when Brielle had wet herself and later went to the kitchen at night to find food. What should have been simple moments of childhood became the trigger for a violent outburst.
You just can't keep the story straight. The only person afraid of the truth is her, Judge. And why? Because the truth is she's a killer.
Despite all the evidence, Marin insisted she was innocent. She chose to stand trial without a jury, putting her fate in the hands of a judge. The tragic loss of Brielle and the circumstances surrounding her death left the community in shock. During the trial, Senior Assistant Attorney General Jeff Strelzin painted a grim picture of Caitlin Marin, calling her a skilled and manipulative liar. He explained how Marin had carefully tried to cover her tracks, but the truth of what happened to her 3-year-old daughter, Brielle Gage, could not be hidden. The courtroom was heavy with sorrow as the details of Brielle's slow and painful death were revealed. Prosecutors shared how the little girl suffered more than 50 injuries, leaving everyone in shock and disbelief. Among those present was Martin's mother, Kathleen Emery, She bravely spoke to the court, her voice filled with heartbreak and sorrow. Kathleen expressed her deep pain, not only for the loss of her beloved granddaughter, but also for her daughter, Caitlin. She mourned the reality that Caitlin would now spend the rest of her life behind bars, far from the life she once knew.
Mom says, no, Ma, don't touch her, don't talk to her. Her doctor said when she cries for no reason, you can't acknowledge her.
The tragedy of Brielle's death left a lasting impact on everyone. In December 2016, Marin was found guilty of second-degree murder. Judge Charles S. Temple sentenced her to 45 years to life in prison. He called Brielle's death horrific and expressed hope that her tragic story would serve as a wake-up call for society to better protect its children, while Marin showed no remorse.
I feel sorry. This is the rest of her life in prison.
Judge Temple called Brielle's death horrific.
And they say while she did talk to police before she was read her rights.
That's why when you get to the station, you don't tell her, you don't have to talk to me.
No.
And that's why you don't make any efforts to provide to her a phone to contact her attorney.
Brielle's death was a devastating reminder of how fragile and precious life is, especially for children. It sparked changes in child protection laws in New Hampshire, ensuring that Brielle's suffering would not be in vain. Though justice was served, the community will forever mourn the loss of a little girl whose life was stolen far too soon.
Pray for her family, for her siblings, because they have to live through it.
Caitlin's ruthless murder shocked the community. The next case shows an unspeakable cruelty that took us into a tragedy that took 2 young lives.
I just received a call from my child's mother that 2 of my youngest 2 dead babies, my sons, are dead in an apartment.
In 2017, a heartbreaking and horrific tragedy unfolded in Atlanta when Lamora Williams, a mother of 3, killed her 2 young sons, Jakarter and Keontae. The devastating incident shocked the community and left many struggling to comprehend how a mother could commit such an unspeakable act. Lamora Williams, a 24-year-old mother of 3, called emergency services in a state of panic, saying she had found her 2 young sons dead at home after leaving them with a caregiver. Lamora described a terrible scene to the 911 dispatcher, saying that the stove had fallen onto her youngest son's head, and her other son was found on the floor with what seemed to be severe injuries. She was frantic, asking for help and insisting that she didn't know what had happened. The situation seemed tragic, and the dispatcher could hear the desperation in her voice.
I'm so scared. I don't want to get locked up because I was at work.
Okay, ma'am.
I
understand that you're scared. I completely understand, but I need to get some help out there to you now.
As police arrived and began investigating, things started to look different. The details of the scene raised more questions. The officers found the children's bodies, and some marks seemed like burns. The investigation led to a shocking discovery. The 2 boys had been placed inside a tipped-over oven and left there for an extended period. This heartbreaking revelation changed everything, and the truth about what happened that tragic day began to emerge, leaving everyone in disbelief. As the investigation unfolded, the authorities began to uncover the heartbreaking truth about what had happened. The 2 young boys had died from severe burns, and the evidence suggested that their heads had been deliberately placed inside an oven that had been tipped over. The autopsy provided even more details, showing that the boys had been exposed to extreme heat for a long time before their tragic deaths. The burns they suffered were unlike any natural accident. All the evidence began to point towards Lamora Williams, the boy's mother. What had initially seemed like a tragic accident now looked like something far more sinister. The police and investigators worked tirelessly to piece together what had happened, and the truth about the mother's involvement in such an unimaginable crime slowly became undeniable, leaving everyone stunned and deeply saddened by the outcome.
We know she was in the building somewhere in a back room, but she chose not to appear directly in front of the judge, so you're looking at video from a previous court hearing.
Lamora Williams was arrested and charged with the murders of her 2 sons. In 2024, she was convicted on 14 counts and sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole, in addition to an extra 35 years for other charges related to the case. Still, she shows no remorse for her actions. She chose to remain silent during the whole trial.
Of concealing a body and 1 charge of lying to police. Williams is accused of killing her 1-year-old and 2-year-old in October by putting them in a hot oven.
The case left the community in shock and sorrow, struggling to comprehend how a mother could carry out such an unimaginable crime against her children. The heartbreak was felt by all who followed the story, especially as Williams maintained her innocence, claiming mental health issues contributed to her actions.
And it's for them, and show them that we're there for him.
Lamora Williams' senseless violence shattered lives and left loved ones grappling with unimaginable loss. The next case shows how kindness can quickly turn into horror.
I am certain
de que siempre vivirá en nuestros corazones.
That she will always live in our heart.
This is the tragic story of Daniela Tabares, a 21-year-old woman whose life was abruptly cut short by an acquaintance she had just met. Daniela was killed in an unthinkable act of violence after a night out with friends from her gym, a night that was supposed to be full of fun and laughter. Daniela was a friendly, supportive member of a gym in Coral Springs, Florida. She was known for her kindness and easily made friends with everyone around her. One evening, during a gym outing, Daniela noticed that Yvonne Serrano, another gym member, had been drinking heavily. Serrano didn't seem to connect with the others, and Daniela, always the caring person, decided to offer her help. She offered to drive Serrano home after the night out. However, as the evening went on, Serrano's behavior became more intense and agitated. Her drunken state made everyone uncomfortable, and it became clear that she wasn't handling herself well. Despite the unsettling vibe, Daniela, trying to do the right thing, decided to drive Serrano home to make sure she was safe. But that decision would have devastating consequences. Hours later, police discovered Daniela's lifeless body in Serrano's driveway with a gunshot wound to her forehead. The investigation revealed the shocking truth, leaving everyone who knew Daniela in disbelief. What happened that night? What went so wrong?
Reduce the charges from second-degree murder, which would have carried a no bond hold on it.
Prosecutors told the judge her soon-to-be ex-husband said when Serrano drinks, she blacks out.
The investigation into Daniela's death uncovered unsettling details. Yvonne Serrano, a woman with no criminal history, gave conflicting statements when questioned by the police. She first claimed that she didn't know how Daniela's body ended up in her driveway. Serrano told officers that she had found Daniela's car there when she was leaving for the gym, but her story began to change. As the investigation continued, Serrano admitted that she had been at the bar that night, drinking heavily. She told the police that she had blacked out, making her memory of the night fuzzy. Her story seemed inconsistent, and the authorities began to suspect her involvement. Further investigation revealed troubling evidence in Serrano's home. A gun was found, and there were signs that she had deleted footage from her Ring doorbell camera, which might have captured crucial moments. The discovery of this evidence raised more questions about Serrano's role in Daniela's tragic death. The inconsistencies in Serrano's statements, combined with the physical evidence, left investigators believing she had a part in what happened that fateful night. Daniela's family and friends were left searching for answers, trying to make sense of the tragedy that had stolen Daniela's life.
Or to give the suspect a ride home. She gave her a ride home. The vehicle pulls in the driveway, and at some point the suspect did shoot the victim and kill her.
Serrano was arrested and charged with murder and tampering with evidence. However, prosecutors later reduced the charges to manslaughter with a firearm, a lesser charge that carries a maximum 30-year sentence. Serrano pleaded not guilty, that she's not guilty of her act, leaving Daniela's family and friends devastated by the turn of events. Despite the change in charges, Daniela's mother, Isa, and those who knew Daniela continued to seek justice for her tragic death.
Good morning, Ms. Serrano. You're charged with 2 counts. The first is tampering or fabricating with physical evidence. The second is second-degree murder.
The story of Daniela Tabares' untimely death has left a deep emotional mark on her family and friends. Daniela's mother, Isa, finds herself grappling with anger and frustration, knowing that no matter what happens in court, her daughter will never return.
Ahorita estamos a la espera de la sentencia.
Isabella Tabares, the victim's mother, said she watched while a jury spent more than 2.5 days deliberating before arriving to the guilty verdict.
Yvonne's heinous case leaves everyone in shock and disbelief. The next case exposed shocking cruelty that caused irreversible damage.
Happen without her? Absolutely not. She's the way that they get into the apartment. She never would have opened the door for Michelle Lambert. She helps tackle her. She holds her down while Lambert's stabbing her to death.
In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, a woman named Tabitha Buck was sentenced to life in prison for the 1991 murder of 16-year-old Lori Sho. Buck, just 17 years old at the time of the crime, along with her accomplice, Lisa Michelle Lambert, lured Sho's mother out of their apartment and brutally slashed Sho's throat. After nearly 28 years in prison, Tabitha Buck was recently released on parole, which has sparked a lot of debate and emotions. Tabitha Buck's story intertwines with Lori Sho's, which began as a typical tale of small-town life, but ended in an unthinkable tragedy. In the summer of 1991, Lori, a bright and kind teenager, briefly dated Lawrence Butch Youngkin. However, Lori later confided to her mother that Youngkin had harmed her. Their relationship ended, and Youngkin returned to Lisa Michelle Lambert, his pregnant ex-girlfriend. For Lambert, Lori became an obsession. Driven by jealousy, she began harassing Lori, showing up at her workplace and spreading rumors. Lambert's friend, Tabitha Buck, joined in the aggression. Buck physically attacked Lori multiple times, including a violent confrontation at a mall. Lambert's malice turned methodical. With Buck's help, she gathered information about Lori's schedule and obtained her phone number. On December 20th, 1991, Lori was brutally attacked at her home. Her mother, Hazel, had been lured away by a staged phone call. Lori sustained fatal injuries but managed to identify Lambert as her killer before succumbing. Police arrested Lambert, Buck, and Youngkin that day. Lori's death remains a haunting reminder of how jealousy and hatred can spiral into violence. Tabitha Buck was granted parole after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that life sentences for juveniles were unconstitutional. This ruling meant that her sentence was revisited, giving her a chance for release after serving nearly 28 years in prison. Some people believe that everyone deserves a second chance, especially those who were young when they committed their crimes. They feel that Tabitha's time in prison allowed her to change and learn from her mistakes. However, for the families affected by her actions, this decision is difficult to accept. The Show family, in particular, is left facing old wounds as they remember the brutal crime that took Lori Show's life.
But a very, very effective one, the odds of my client meeting a personality like that, I don't know, 1,000,000 to 1.
Lancaster County District Attorney Craig Stedman shared how painful it has been for victims' families, even though the court was just following the law. The decision raises a complex issue. Should someone who committed a serious crime as a juvenile be given a second chance? While the law sees potential for rehabilitation, the emotional weight for those who have suffered from the crime remains heavy. This situation leaves everyone questioning the balance between justice, healing, and the hope for redemption. Tabitha Buck's parole was granted after she showed good behavior during her time in prison, completed programs to improve herself, and took responsibility for the crime she committed. Despite these positive steps, she must follow strict rules now that she's out. She's not allowed to have contact with anyone who uses substances or with the family of the victim, Lori Show. She must also attend regular mental health evaluations and, importantly, she can't go back or even visit Lancaster County, where the crime happened. Some people believe that this is a fair chance for Buck to rebuild her life, especially since she was so young when she committed the crime. However, others feel unsure about whether someone who took the life of another person, especially so brutally, should be allowed back into society. For the victim's family and others affected, it's hard to accept that someone who caused so much pain could now be free. It's a complex situation where the law offers a second chance, but it still leaves many with mixed emotions and questions about justice and forgiveness.
Tabitha Buck was 17 years old when she was sentenced to life in prison for the brutal killing of 16-year-old Lori Show in Lancaster County.
Tabitha Buck is now a free woman, but her release doesn't erase the trauma caused by her actions all those years ago. While she serves her parole under strict conditions, the emotional scars for the Show family and others affected by the case remain. This case highlights the complexity of juvenile justice and whether it's possible for someone to truly change after committing such a crime.
The surviving family members were told that the sentence was final, and in cases like this, that it was life without parole. And
Tabitha's journey ahead will not only be one of legal challenges, but emotional healing for all involved. The emotional reaction to Buck's release is mixed. For some, it brings hope that people can change, even after making terrible mistakes. For others, it feels like a reminder of the deep pain caused by the loss of a young life. The release of someone who committed such a violent crime against another person is difficult for many to accept, particularly for the victim's family, who are left to process the hurt once again. Next, we turn to Chloe Driver, a case that highlights the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions.
I see her everywhere, in everything. She lives on and shows me that beauty can be found anywhere.
On December 8, 2020, in the quiet neighborhood of Canton, Georgia, police responded to a harrowing scene. A 13-month-old baby girl, Hannah Nicole Driver, had been brutally killed. Her mother, 24-year-old Chloe Driver, was arrested at the scene after attempting to take her own life. Chloe, accompanied by a group believed to be part of a traveling cult, stopped at a home in the Mountain View neighborhood. Shortly after arriving, Chloe took a knife, locked herself in a bedroom with Hannah, and stabbed her daughter 4 times. The baby's father desperately tried to save her, but tragically, Hannah was pronounced dead on the scene. Chloe survived her self-inflicted wounds. When the case was trialed, her defense rested on an insanity plea. She claimed that her mental illness had driven her to commit an unthinkable act, a tragic moment she said she could barely comprehend herself. Her defense painted her as a deeply troubled young woman, overwhelmed by struggles beyond her control. But the prosecution told a much different story, one that sent chills through the courtroom. They described a mother whose behavior after the crime showed no sign of remorse. Instead, they portrayed her as cold and indifferent to the unspeakable loss of her child.
I wanted to see if she was okay because, I mean, she was running from them. And then they had got a hold of her and was dragging her back to the apartments that were right there.
The trial was deeply emotional. Police officers who had first arrived at the scene gave tearful testimonies, recounting the devastating moment they found 13-month-old Hannah. Jurors struggled to contain their emotions as they viewed crime scene photos and body camera footage, each image revealing the heartbreaking details of the baby's final moments. In the end, the courtroom was filled with an overwhelming sense of sorrow. The innocence of a baby lost and the unimaginable actions of a mother left everyone grappling with the weight of the tragedy, their hearts heavy with grief and disbelief. The 6-day trial of Chloe Driver was a heartbreaking journey through the tragic loss of 13-month-old Hannah. Over 21 witnesses came forward, and 135 pieces of evidence were presented.
I am being forced to get into a truck with Benjamin and Mikhail or Brian Joyce to see my daughter again because he has kept her away from me.
He is the next of kin in this case, so our office makes contact with the next of kin to the victims, and we had done that on occasion. Okay.
Along with it, including chilling 911 calls and crime scene photos. Each day in court revealed more details of that fateful day, leaving everyone grappling with the unimaginable. Chloe's defense focused on her mental health. 3 psychologists testified about her profound struggles, and Chloe herself spoke, expressing deep regret for what had happened. Her lawyers argued that her mental illness clouded her judgment and drove her to a tragic act that she could never undo.
Guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but mentally ill. Count 5, cruelty to children in the first degree. Guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but mentally ill.
But the prosecution painted a starkly different picture. They described Chloe as a mother who showed little care for her child, even during the trial. They pointed to moments where her behavior seemed cold and inappropriate, arguing that her actions showed a troubling lack of accountability. They highlighted how her choices led to Hannah's heartbreaking end, leaving no room for excuses. The courtroom was filled with grief and conflicting emotions. The evidence told a painful story, but the memories of baby Hannah brought a shared hope of justice and healing to the wake of such an unspeakable tragedy.
You were attempting to save her life, and that was attempting to save Hannah's life.
Yeah, he was.
Did you care about Kuwani and Hannah?
Of course.
Do you still care about them?
Yeah.
The jury rejected Chloe's insanity plea, finding her guilty but mentally ill. She was convicted of malice murder, felony murder, child cruelty, and aggravated assault. Judge McKellia sentenced her to life in prison with the chance of parole plus 20 years, while acknowledging the trauma inflicted on everyone involved. During the time of trial, Chloe gets emotional as she feels guilty for what she did to her daughter.
This state would dictate that you would serve 30 years of a life sentence before you were considered for parole.
This case struck at the deepest levels of human emotion. A mother tackling her child's life is an act that defies comprehension. The community mourned the loss of an innocent baby while struggling to understand the profound darkness that led to this tragedy. During the hearing, the father of the baby said, "This woman took my daughter's life."
Where I sat for 3 months in a van just screaming and screaming and screaming that this woman believed that she was entitled to take my daughter's life out of this world.
Chloe Driver's heart-wrenching crime devastated a family. Breaking news: Evil Lives Here now has merch. Support the channel and grab your gear today. Check the link in the description. But the next case takes a dark turn with a shocking betrayal that led to the death of a husband.
It has been so hard to go through all of this for the last 3.5+ years after what I went through.
On a quiet day in 2012, tragedy struck a family in Carlsbad, California, when Julie Harper was sentenced to 40 years in prison for killing her husband. Julie Harper, 39 at the time, shot and killed her husband, Jason Harper, in their upstairs bedroom. Meanwhile, their 3 children were downstairs, unaware of the horrific event unfolding above them. Julie claimed that the shooting was an accident, a desperate act of self-defense during a heated argument. She testified that Jason, an athletic and spirited man, charged at her, and the gun went off unintentionally. However, the story is not like that. Investigators uncovered troubling details, including Julie's preparation of a getaway bag filled with passports and cash, suggesting she planned to flee.
Harper told them to look in a blue backpack now at his house for attorney's fees. Inside, nearly $40,000 in cash.
Julie Harper's case took a dramatic turn as it unfolded in court. At first, during her initial trial, she was acquitted of first-degree murder. leaving her family and the public divided over what had truly happened on that fateful day. According to Julie, her husband mistreated her for years, and on that day he was doing the same. But in a retrial in 2015, a jury reviewed the evidence again and found her guilty of second-degree murder for the death of her husband, Jason Harper.
Julie Harper talked about the day she killed her husband. She said she and her husband Jason started fighting about money in their bedroom when he got violent.
The judge handed down a 15-year to life sentence, but an additional 25 years were added because Julie had used a firearm during the crime. This brought her total sentence to 40 years to life, ensuring she would spend decades behind bars. Years later, Julie sought to shorten her sentence, citing a new California Supreme Court ruling that allowed judges more flexibility in reducing firearm-related penalties. She hoped this could give her a chance for an earlier release. However, the prosecution firmly opposed her request, arguing that Julie's actions, including disposing of the murder weapon and preparing a getaway bag, made her a danger to public safety. They believed her sentence should remain intact to reflect the seriousness of her crime. On a quiet Thursday morning, the courtroom fell silent as Superior Court Judge Blaine Bowman made his final decision. Julie Harper, who had been convicted of killing her husband Jason, sat anxiously as the judge upheld her original 40-year-to-life sentence, rejecting her appeal. The prosecution painted a clear picture of Julie's actions, emphasizing the troubling details surrounding the case. They pointed out that Julie had never shown genuine remorse for taking Jason's life. Adding to the suspicion, the murder weapon was never found, and evidence suggested Julie had intentionally gotten rid of it.
Grabbed me by the arms, began shaking me forcefully.
Julie says she feared for her life.
Prosecutors also highlighted that Julie had prepared a getaway bag with passports and cash, which they argued showed she had plans to flee after the tragic event. These actions, they claimed, reflected a calculated attempt to escape responsibility for her crime. Judge Bowman agreed, stating that reducing Julie's sentence would not serve justice. His decision was met with quiet relief by Jason's grieving family. Though the courtroom proceedings concluded, the emotional weight of the tragedy lingered. Jason's loved ones left the courthouse with heavy hearts, finding some solace in knowing that the sentence upheld the memory of a life taken too soon. Julie Harper was sentenced to 40 years to life for killing her husband. Jason's family, including his mother Lena, expressed relief at the decision, insisting that justice for Jason must be served. They believe Julie should serve at least as many years as she took from her husband's life.
For a total term of 40 years to life in state prison. Do we have, and from probation, quit your appearance for probation, I failed to get that.
There wasn't a hint of remorse, only a quiet determination. She explained each of her actions with clarity, revealing that every choice she made was driven by the instinct to protect herself. It wasn't recklessness or malice, it was survival.
Allows the judge discretion over the gun allegation, which added 25 years to life to her sentence. It was mandatory in California until just this year. Now her turn to appeal it.
This heartbreaking case left a family shattered. For Jason's loved ones, the memories of his vibrant personality were overshadowed by the devastating loss. While justice brought some closure, the emotional scars remain. Even Julie's children show remorse for their dad, saying to their mother that, "I don't want to call her mom." Justice was served, but the scars of this tragedy will remain forever.
Julie would usually be asleep.
You called your mom Julie, is that right?
Yes.
Is that what you call her now?
Yes.
How come you started calling her Julie?
Because I don't want to say that she is my mom.
The next case takes us to Michelle Kehoe, a mother whose actions left a chilling mark on her family.
We still love Michelle as a wife, mother, and friend, and hope that she receives the treatment that she needs.
In October 2008, Michelle Kehoe, a mother from Coralville, Iowa, drove her two sons to a secluded spot near Littleton. What followed was a horrific act that would leave one of her sons dead and the other severely injured. Michelle taped their eyes shut and then slashed their throats with a knife before attempting to take her own life. In October 2008, Michelle Kehoe took her two sons to a quiet, secluded area near Littleton, Iowa. It was a trip that would change their lives forever. In a shocking and heartbreaking moment, Michelle, in a fit of anger and confusion, taped their eyes shut and then attacked them with a knife. Tragically, her 2-year-old son, who was too young to understand the horror around him, lost his life to the brutal wounds. Her 7-year-old son, however, showed incredible strength and resilience. Despite the terrifying attack, he survived and, as difficult as it must have been, he courageously testified in court about what happened that day. Initially, Michelle tried to shift the blame, telling authorities that a stranger had attacked them. However, the truth soon came out. After some time, she admitted that she was the one responsible for the tragedy. The boy's bravery and the heartbreaking loss of his little brother left the community in shock. It was a devastating moment for everyone who knew the family, especially as a mother was the one who caused the harm. Despite her confession, the legal system had to carry out its duty to ensure justice for the surviving child.
Guilty of murder in the first degree, dated November 5, 2009, by Anthony L. Buter, presiding juror.
As Michelle Kehoe's trial began, the case became more complicated than anyone expected. Despite her confession, Michelle's defense team argued that she wasn't mentally fit to stand trial. They believed that her troubled mental health played a significant role in the attack, and that this should have been a central part of her defense. Her lawyers claimed that Michelle wasn't in the right state of mind when she made the confession to the police, and that her statements should not have been used against her.
Strategy to get, quote, your story out through the experts, because then you wouldn't be subjected to cross-examination.
The defense also argued that her attorney during the trial had failed to properly protect her rights, especially when it came to the statements she made while in the hospital. According to them, these statements were influenced by her mental health struggles and should not have been admitted as evidence. The defense hoped that the court would consider her mental health history and show mercy, acknowledging her struggles. Despite these claims, the court ruled otherwise. The judges determined that Michelle understood what she had done, the charges against her, and the process of her trial. They found that her confession was given voluntarily, without coercion, and that she was fit to stand trial. The Iowa Court of Appeals rejected her appeal, confirming that Michelle Kehoe was fit to stand trial. The judges concluded that she understood the charges against her and had voluntarily confessed to the crime. In the end, Michelle was convicted of murder and attempted murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole and is currently serving her sentence at the Mitchellville Women's Prison.
Society has overall suffered because of your actions and because of the decisions that you made.
As the trial went on, Michelle became overwhelmed with emotion. The weight of what she had done hit her hard, and as the evidence was presented, she started to lose her composure. Her voice shook, and tears filled her eyes. It was clear she now fully understood the seriousness of her actions and felt deep regret.
And I want to express my deep sorrow. I hope that was for healing, for Sean, for Tiniko, for my friends and family.
This tragic case left a community in shock. The horror of a mother turning against her children is almost impossible to comprehend. While the surviving son's courage in testifying helped secure justice, the grief of losing a young life and the trauma of surviving such an attack will stay with him forever. The case also highlights the importance of mental health and understanding the complexities of crime and justice. The actions of these family killers left scars that will never heal, and their lack of remorse in court only deepens the tragedy. But there's more to uncover. The next video on screen dives deeper into shocking cases and the courtroom verdicts that shook the world. Keep watching.